Did you know that the United States has provided Israel with over $150 billion in aid since 1948? That's more than any other country has received from the U.S. This statistic reflects the deep alliance between the two nations, but it also sheds light on why the Israel-Palestine conflict remains one of the most contentious and polarizing issues of our time. In recent years, the dynamics of this conflict have shifted dramatically, especially with Donald Trump's introduction of the Peace to Prosperity plan. Touted as the deal of the century, the plan was a bold attempt to resolve one of the world's most intractable conflicts. But did it offer a real path to peace, or was it just another layer of complexity in an already fragile situation? Let's dive deeper. A high-stakes agenda. Donald Trump's tenure as U.S. president was marked by bold and often controversial decisions. One of the most impactful was his approach to the Israel-Palestine conflict. Unlike his predecessors, Trump didn't shy away from taking unprecedented steps, breaking long-standing diplomatic norms in the process. His administration recognized Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital, moved the U.S. embassy there, and brokered normalization agreements between Israel and several Arab nations under the Abraham Accords. These moves were celebrated by many in Israel and parts of the international community, but they also drew sharp criticism from Palestinians and their allies. Trump's Peace to Prosperity plan was the culmination of his administration's Middle East strategy. Announced in January 2020, the plan promised to finally resolve a conflict that had eluded resolution for decades. But even before the ink dried on the proposal, it became clear that this plan would not be without controversy. A conflict steeped in history. The Israel-Palestine conflict isn't just a dispute over land. It's a battle over identity, history, and survival. It's a conflict rooted in decades of grievances, displacement, and bloodshed. The conflict began in the early 20th century, as Jewish immigration to Palestine increased amid rising Zionist aspirations and growing Arab nationalism. In 1947, the United Nations proposed partitioning the land into separate Jewish and Arab states, but the plan was rejected by Arab leaders. This led to the establishment of Israel in 1948 and the subsequent displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event they refer to as the Nakba, or catastrophe. Since then, wars, intifadas, and cycles of violence have defined the region. At the heart of the conflict are several unresolved issues. 1. Territorial disputes. The status of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem remains deeply contested. 1. Refugee rights. Millions of Palestinian refugees and their descendants demand the right to return to their ancestral lands, a demand Israel rejects. 1. Security concerns. Israel seeks recognition as a Jewish state and guarantees for its security, citing threats from Hamas and other militant groups. 1. Political fragmentation. The Palestinian leadership is divided, with the Palestinian Authority governing parts of the West Bank and Hamas controlling Gaza. Previous peace efforts, from the Oslo Accords to the Camp David summit, have failed to bridge the gap between these two peoples. Into this deeply fraught context, Trump's plan entered as both a promise and a provocation. Inside Trump's Israel-Palestine plan, Trump's Peace to Prosperity plan was ambitious, detailed, and highly controversial. Crafted over 3 years by his son-in-law Jared Kushner, it aimed to resolve the conflict by addressing both economic and political dimensions. Here's a closer look at its key features. Two-state solution with strings attached. The plan proposed a Palestinian state but under significant conditions. Palestinians would need to disarm militant groups, recognize Israel as a Jewish state, and agree to a demilitarized existence. The proposed Palestinian state would consist of non-contiguous territories connected by tunnels and bridges, raising questions about its viability. Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. Trump's plan solidified U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, a move that had already sparked outrage in the Arab world. It offered Palestinians control over certain neighborhoods in East Jerusalem but fell far short of their demand for East Jerusalem as their capital. Settlement legitimization. The plan allowed Israel to annex settlements in the West Bank, which are considered illegal under international law. This effectively gave Israel sovereignty over large swaths of disputed territory, further alienating Palestinians. Economic incentives. The plan emphasized economic growth for Palestinians, proposing a $50 billion investment package to boost infrastructure, healthcare, and education. Critics argued that this was an attempt to substitute financial benefits for meaningful political concessions. While Israeli leaders, including then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, praised the plan, Palestinians rejected it outright. They saw it as heavily biased toward Israel and dismissive of their core demands for statehood and sovereignty. Reactions and fallout. The unveiling of Trump's plan sparked intense reactions, both within the region and globally. In Israel, the plan was celebrated by the right-wing government as a validation of their policies. Netanyahu called it a realistic path to durable peace. In contrast, Palestinian leaders, including Mahmoud Abbas, rejected the plan outright. Abbas declared, "We say 1,000 times, no, no, no to the deal of the century." Protests erupted across Palestinian territories, with demonstrators burning images of Trump and Netanyahu. Internationally, the response was mixed. 1. Supporters. Countries like the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, which later normalized relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords, expressed cautious optimism about the plan's economic components. 1. Critics. Nations like Turkey and Iran, along with human rights organizations, condemned the plan as undermining international law and Palestinian rights. The plan's most dramatic fallout was perhaps its impact on Palestinian unity. While Hamas and the Palestinian Authority remained divided politically, Trump's proposal briefly united them in opposition, illustrating the depth of its unpopularity among Palestinians. A legacy of controversy. Trump's Israel-Palestine agenda has left a complicated legacy. On one hand, it broke new ground by challenging conventional approaches to the conflict. On the other hand, it entrenched divisions and left Palestinians feeling more isolated than ever. The fundamental issues, territorial boundaries, the status of Jerusalem, and the rights of refugees, remain unresolved. As the Biden administration and other global actors attempt to re-engage with the region, the question looms: did Trump's plan pave the way for peace, or did it further deepen the divide? What's clear is that the Israel-Palestine conflict is as complex as ever, and any future attempts at resolution will need to address not just the symptoms but the deep-rooted causes of the conflict. Let's keep the conversation going. What do you think about Trump's peace to prosperity plan? Was it a bold step toward peace, or did it fail to address the core issues of the conflict? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to check out our other videos exploring the history and geopolitics of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Understanding these issues is key to shaping a better future. Join us on this journey toward uncovering the truth.